long and hard about this one. And I hope there's some folk praying with me. And I hope there's some people who understand the words of the writer Kohelet when he told his students in the book of Ecclesiastes, the 7th chapter, the 10th verse, do not say, why were the old days better than these? For it's not wise to ask such questions. Sometimes we want to go back, but God has given us the grace, the gifts, and the gall to press forward. Backward seems like a place of comfort, a place of calm, a place of contentment. But the reality of life is that there has been no time in history that was without trial, tribulation, turmoil, or tragedy. I want to suggest that sometimes we spend too much time romanticizing about the past. And how about we take this moment as an opportunity to start fantasizing about the future? That's the kind of church anniversary celebration I prepared for, because between Maggie Street and First CME, we've got over 250 years to celebrate of what happened and what got us here. But we only have right now to deal with the reality of what's going to keep us here for another century, impacting and influencing people in an unchurched culture in a dynamic and drastically changing, evolving society. We can spend all our time today shouting about the history. And thank God for the story. But biblical history has always been intertwined with prophecy. In other words, God did so God could do. I don't want to miss that. This is a popular piece of biblical narrative. Jesus is crucified on the cross. He dies. That's history. Write it down. Open the grave. Put him in. Shut the tomb. But the history was tied to prophecy. A few days later, the grave is open. The clothes are folded. The body is gone. The man who went down in shame rose up in victory. God is a master with the glue who attaches history to prophecy. Don't miss that. In this celebration, history is intertwined with prophecy. All that you were, all that you have gone through, was for the purpose of forging you into all that you could be. God does, so God can do. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. That's the history. But the prophecy is in the next clause. That whosoever believes in him, that people who haven't even heard of Maggie Street yet, that's the children and the adults that need a church who don't even know where the Dream Center is located. That's for the folk who are lost and can't find their way. Those who are blind and cannot yet see. History is tied to prophecy. So in this celebration, we give God the praise for the history. But we pray for the revelation and the manifestation of divine prophecy. I'm thankful that as I reviewed the theme for this celebration and I observed the t-shirt, I noted both the history of the cross and the capacity that the cross holds to unite and endow us with prophetic possibilities. If we look at the text today, we are led to the book of Ephesians. Jesus has died 60 years before the letter is written. And out of his death, we see the birth of a church that manages to survive through all kinds of hardships, persecutions, and setbacks. And I read the Maggie Street history online. And the record reflects that there have been some good days and some bad days. 60 years later, the Church of Christ, about half the age of Maggie Street, is still a church in transition. And depending on which scholar you consult, Paul the bishop has either been dead for decades or he's locked up in jail. And yet a letter is sent in his name to a church at Ephesus that Paul either visited, never visited, some churches in Ephesus that were around the corner from each other, or there was a church where his friends and his families attended. But On the surface, this writer has sent a letter for the purpose of encouraging the church to stick together. And it's more than just a greeting card. What the writer understands is that the church is not an entity unto itself, meaning it cannot survive without certain supernatural elements. It is not just an institution administered by its leaders, its pastors, its deacons, or its stewards, meaning leadership can't single-handedly hold it together. The church is greater than its leadership and is defined by something more important than its location in time and space. The church is an extension of the kingdom of God. It is the incarnate body of Jesus Christ, and therefore it is always under attack from within and without. And at the 60-year mark, the writer can see where they might be around their 119th church anniversary. He can foresee the bumps, the potholes, the near misses, the obstructions, the head-on collision lurking in the shadows of their future. This is a prophetic writer who is talking to us, acknowledging that, yeah, we've come this far by faith. Leaning on the Lord. So he understands the historicity. He's saying, I don't believe God brought us this far to leave us. So he's in tune with the present. But from what I can tell, he's also peering into the future. I can hear him tuning up, saying, Mama told me there'd be days like this. Now that's what the writer wants to get across to us. At every point in history, there has been a threat against God's people, both individually and collectively. Master, God, is a master with the glue. So this writer is reading the world, and he's reading the church. And he offers us this advice because he knows, he can see into the future, and he knows how easy it is to separate us. There is unseen trouble within and obvious trouble without. There are some people who you know who are around that stick very close to you. But when trouble comes, they will not stick with you. You've got some friends you can go to the mall with and you can go to lunch with, but you also have some friends you can go to the hood with. The writer is trying to tap into some ride or die people in this text who understand how to stick together when the worst happens. When things pop off, friends, how many of us have them friends ones we can depend on? Friendship, unity, love, peace all sound good until some drama is presented, until some problems are uncovered, until some stuff hits the fan. That's when you know, that's when you can tell if we're in this together. That's how you can tell whether we have true relationship. Jesus already knew this when he was down there at the Last Supper. His disciples would detach themselves. His followers would flee. When it came down to it, even Peter, the dedicated one, distanced and denied that he ever even knew him. The writer of this text, church, is in tune with the human condition. Or better yet, he's keenly conscious of the frail, frivolous, and fickle elements within humanity. For a church to really be strong, it has to recognize its weaknesses. But you don't have to worry about it. Because God is a master with the glue. The problem is that everybody's not down for the cause. Paul has been there. 2,000 years later, we have some new names. Church not called Ephesus, it's called some church on the corner. But the game is still the same. And I don't want to paint a terrible picture this morning, but the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what age, what time, people are people. Wherever you go, whatever color they are, whatever location, people are just people. And the writer wants to account for the fact that there are some good people. But sometimes good people get caught up in bad situations. Sometimes even the best of us make some bad choices. Yes, there are some good people in the church. And there's some folk in the church who are just not so good. And there are some people in the church who think they are good. And they aren't so good either. But since we all have the ability to be bad at some times, something has to hold stay together and make the relationship work, we have to deal with the reality of what's on the table and what we bring to the table. And while there are some condescending church folk who act like they never made a mistake, the Bible shuts all of that down. When we hear in Isaiah 64:6, all of us have been like the one who is unclean. And all of our righteousness is like filthy rags. And we all shrivel up like a leaf. And like the wind, our sins sweep us away. So the church has a capacity for greatness. But Paul's prophetic instincts says if they don't find the common denominator, they are going to be deterred from their divine destiny and exist in division and dissension. So what does he tell them? He talks to them from the perspective of a prisoner. If there are any people in the church today who have seen Scared Straight, Lock Up, or Lock Down, you realize that prisoners don't have many choices. Prisoners don't have a lot of freedom. And if they are smart, they don't take a lot of liberties. Prisoners have a different mindset. But Paul is proud of the fact that he has been incarcerated under a different kind of warden. Paul would tell us if you have a relationship with God, you can be locked up and free at the same time. Acts the 16th chapter informs us that Paul has the kind of privileges as a prisoner by virtue of his relationship with God that when he prays, the physical jail can't even hold him. I believe he's talking to us today, begging us to upgrade our lifestyles, to take a number and assume prisoner status with God. I've been watching prison shows for years, and my obvious observation is the task of the prisoner who they're interviewing is to keep people to deter them from going to jail, to stop the activities that will lead them to a sentence. Never heard anyone on those shows saying, "This is the life." You've never heard anybody saying, "Sing, sing, Rikers Island or Attica is paradise." Paul just may be in a maximum security prison on cell block 4 from time to time, but he's not an inmate of the correctional facility. This man who was talking to us has been arrested and imprisoned by the will of God. And he wants to have that grandmama and granddaddy talk with us and sit us down and tell us, "Listen, where you going? I've been there already." And get this, everything that he points out is the antithesis of what we believe is true. I want you to reach your greatest potential, but you don't reach it by the freedom of your own will. You must be suppressed and arrested under the authority of God. If we read Ephesians 4, it sounds like a rosy introduction. But the fact of the matter is, the life worthy of the calling really means becoming a convict. And if you look at your shirt today, you have on your chest the symbol of a convict who was arrested by the will of God. I studied the text, and I realized there's something abnormal about what Paul is proposing. Paul is saying stuff that does not appeal to our first nature. Paul says, put your desires under duress, and be gentle to the people who are rough with you, and put up with people who might perpetually get on your nerves, and foster a peace in the midst of chaos. What I'm hearing is the church has to loose itself from its human nature and cuff itself to the actions that bring glory to the God of their salvation. Got to ask you a question. What has you bound? If we ask the question, if God made an assessment today, are many of us chained up to the will of God? Will we be found guilty of being prisoners of God? I've seen churches as prisoners. They're prisoners of the past. I've seen them bound to buildings, bound up by personal preference, bound up in cliques, bound by their tradition, bound to their right to privilege, prestige, and position. And in every case, the thing that wraps them up is also their undoing. This is a text about being locked up in God's spiritual industrial complex. I'm almost finished. But I don't want you to forget this. God is a master with the glue. Everything we have gone through is just preparation. It's a process preparing us for God's promise. And I really wanted to gain an understanding of what it meant to be united or unified in Christ. And when I traced the etymology of the word, I found that unification only happens under the unifier. And the word is linked to a word that means fashion in Latin or manufacture. So to be unified is to bring together pieces of a unit that can really exist in separation, but the text tells us our individual pieces can do more than exist. They can live and they can also breathe life because we have been brought together by a divine, supreme unifier. I don't know about you, but I've been in some churches where there's a chill in the atmosphere. And I hear Donnie Hathaway singing with the choir, with Roberta Flack, "Where is the love?" You can hear Rolls Royce singing, "There's just a vacancy, love, don't live here anymore." God told me, if you really want to understand what I'm saying, listen to the words of the text. Make an effort to preserve the unity and the spirit of peace that ties you together. Contemporary English says, try your best to let God's Spirit keep your hearts united. I read on your website that you have a mission to take the gospel to the whole city. And I want to tell you something you already know. The devil knows how to get in your mix and mess up your mission. But if you have some glue, you can stick together when opposition arises. You can stick together when you encounter obstacles. If you have some glue. You remember that God didn't call you just to be a church, but God called you as a nation, and He called you out of darkness. God didn't call you as a denomination. That's just another word for separation. But God unified us under the banner of heaven and bought us with the blood of His beloved Son. And if life and death and angels and demons and powers seen and unseen and those things above and those things below can't separate His love from us, then the church has some gorilla glue that binds us together even when the stuff of the world tries to tear us apart. The glue of God's love will remind you that you are a chosen nation, a royal priesthood, extracted out of darkness and escorted by God into the marvelous light. God told me I'm a master with the glue. He said, Ken, if you want to help today, tell the people to imagine a world with no glue. Sit down in a chair and the composite pieces will fall apart. Pick up a laptop and the screen falls out. Put on your shoes and the soles will detach. Some of us, the tracks will fall out of our hair. without glue. God showed me a world without glue, excuse me. And there were parts that were component pieces that could have been brought together. And they could have made things whole. But they lay fractured because there was no adhesive to bring them together. And Jesus was sacrificed on the cross because we were broken pieces in need of the adhesive that will bring us back together and bind us in unity to God. God looked at us and said, they will be lost without my love. They will fall apart without my favor. They will separate without my spirit. But I'll take some of my son, and I'll stick him in the middle of their problems. And I'll stick him in the middle of their broken situations. Because I am a master of the glue. And it won't be by their strength, but it'll be by my spirit. Because if I don't glue them together, they will be pieces without a plan, and without a plan there is no point. If I don't glue them together, they will have potential. They will be good prospects, but they will have no real pertinence. If I don't give them my glue, the wind will blow them apart. The storms will scare them. Life will tear them up. You can have pieces and potential, but without glue, there is no product. Without Christ, there is no commitment to a great commission. Divided disciples cannot reach their destination. God says, I know there's some stuff that's chipped away at you over the years. There's some broken relationships in every church. There's some plans and some visions that fell apart. But God stands in the midst of this place today to remind us all that he is a master with the glue. The potter crafted the cross to put us back together again. And when it gets hard to remember the glue, remember when meetings don't go your way. Think about the glue. When you're about to lose your mind, remember that greater is he that is in me than he that is in this world. And the text says all of us are parts of the same body. Colossians 3:12 says, you have been chosen by God. So be gentle, kind, humble, meek, and patient. And put up with each other. And forgive those folk who do you wrong. Just as God has forgiven you. Love is more important than anything else. Grab some of the glue when it starts to fall apart. He says, beyond all these things, put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity. And let the peace of Christ rule your hearts, to which you were called into one body. And be thankful. And remember that your God is a master with the glue.
This is a very important moment right now. There may be someone